Voices from GLAC. So earlier this year, all of us were housebound due to COVID regulations. And you may have noticed that most programming moved online, if not all programming moved online. And therefore, the GIZ Global Leadership Academy, of which we are all members, invited us, its members, to share their thoughts on what was needed and what innovative online formats we could co-create. Voices from GLAC, which is styled on TED Talks, is one of these co-created formats, along with several others like community cafes, which include happy hours, speed dating, and celebration time, masterclasses, and peer mentoring. And all of these were co-created by members over an 8-week period in a program called the Summer Camp. It was a fun exercise, and we had to go on virtual treks, have campfire nights, and at the same time co-create these online formats. This particular session, Voices from GLAC, was co-created by my group, comprising of Simon Masaba, Peter Aditor, Fabrice Muchaga, and Anna Christine. It was great fun, and I certainly hope the GIZ Global Leadership Academy will continue this series of inviting members to co-create formats for interaction and knowledge sharing. I'd like to invite Anna to say a few words on this GLAC co-creation summer camp.
Thanks very much, Elsa, and welcome everyone. I'm really happy to finally be here on this stage event. It is, as you said, a result of the summer camp. And actually, we had been experimenting before that also with online formats, since in this time, this is the only possibility that we can meet as a community and bring the network together. And, then we really felt we only wanted to continue formats that were actually supporting the members. And so that was the idea, to have the formats created by the members for the members. And I'm happy actually that now there is also a group of 5 members who will take over all these formats that you mentioned, Elsa, and as an online format team, bring it to the community from next year. And I believe some of them are also here. I'm very happy that you are all part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. So I'd like to encourage everyone to check out the various formats and do participate, because they are, like Anna said, by members for members. So today we are going to listen to 4 of our members who responded to our call to participate in Voices from GLAC. Over the last month and a half, they have been through a mentoring program by media coach Melanie Cherry on the art of storytelling and public speaking for impact. And, I am really excited to introduce them to you, but I hope you're inspired and excited too. And our first speaker is Shirley Gunn. She is joining us from South Africa and is the co-founder of the Human Rights Media Center. Good morning, Shirley. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you, Ilse Marie.
Are you excited?
Yes, I am.
Great. Over to you, Shirley. Take it on.
Memory is the heart of the Human Rights Media Center's work. We document and disseminate oral histories for human rights awareness, education, and advocacy. Not only in books, but through films, radio programs, photographs, wall murals, art, and podcasts. In other words, in multimedia format. As director, I work long hours. My passion is infinite. It is nourished by local and global networks gathered over 20 years. I'm Shirley Gunn from Cape Town, where I feel deeply rooted in my roles as daughter, sibling, mother, leader, and activist. My life is published in Voices from the Underground by Penguin Random House. Its central focus is my life as a freedom fighter with those whom I fought alongside. It would be wonderful reconnecting with like-minded people I met through Nelson Mandela Dialogues and Global Leadership Academy. Sharing and drawing inspiration from one another, walking our life journeys together, a formidable force for change, celebrating our diversity and common humanity for freedom, justice, and accountability as peace-loving human beings.
Thank you, Shirley. You know, you've been through a lot in your life. You've been through a freedom struggle, post-apartheid reconstruction, and now we are going through this unusual time of COVID. How do you stay motivated?
Well, I think that this period has thrown up many challenges and we've had to adapt, and we've all learnt a tremendous amount, and I'm inspired by those learnings, including connecting virtually.
Great. So I know you worked with women and crafts. Can you show us some of these beautiful items that you have made?
Yes. The organization I work for and serve is 20 years old, and 5 years ago we started a cooperative among the women who are refugees and asylum seekers and South African veterans, and we make wonderful craft. Look at him, isn't he naughty? This is a stuffed animal and it's a monkey, and we've made this year many masks that we distribute at a very reasonable price, because this can save lives. But it has been a difficult year for the crafters because we haven't been able to have markets and meetings face to face. We had our AGM yesterday, and surprisingly, we've done very well despite the challenges of COVID-19.
Thank you, Shirley. It is an unusual time, and I know you're working really hard to get these crafts out. So anyone in the audience who has connects, please share them with Shirley. I'm sure the women will benefit from your help. So thank you, Shirley, once again. And over to our next speaker. Joining us from my neighboring country, Pakistan, is Momi Salim. She and I are part of several of our German networks, Responsible Leaders, Bosch Alumni, GLAC, and GDL, of course. Momi is a policy researcher and is the founding executive director of the Institute of Urbanism. And she's working on nature-inclusive urban settings. Over to you, Momi.
Thank you, Elsa. Thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you all are. Where I am, it's afternoon. So urbanization is posing unmatched challenges to the human race. As a founder of a think tank, I, Momi Salim, aspire to make urban areas nature inclusive. We at the Institute envision cities to be welfare hubs that would give full freedom to nature and human to coexist. Sustainable cities promise health, clean air, open spaces, greener neighborhood, clean water, food security, and nutrition for all. In 2008, human beings became urban species as more people lived in urban areas than ever before. Urban areas alone are contributing 70% greenhouse gas emissions globally, and natural resources are depleting fast. much of it owes to the lack of proper management and innovative solutions to the environmental problems. Therefore, we require policy options. We require platforms that could bring together a multitude of stakeholders for collective impact. Policy platforms should be co-creation spaces that bring policymakers and businesses closer to the ordinary citizens. These platforms should enable city dwellers, especially youth and women, to reflect their needs and aspirations in the co-created solutions. As Elsa has already mentioned, being part of various networks, I think that today, from the platform that I'm speaking, which is GLAC, is one such community that could foster partnerships to find innovative solutions and make cities green again. Thank you.
Thank you, Momi. That was really powerful. And it brings home the fact that by 2050, 70% of the world's population is going to live in cities or urban areas. And you and I live on the subcontinent, which is one of the densest in the world. So how do you think that communities like ours, you know, the GLAC community or even the other networks that we are jointly part of, how can they bring about, you know, collaborative change on sustainability and inclusive urbanism?
Elsa, that's a very pertinent question. And I think if we talk about SDGs, one of the basic pillars of SDGs, which connects all the SDGs, is partnership. And I think networks like GLAC can actually foster partnerships, not only at national level, but I think at global level, and as you have already mentioned, also at regional level. Because I think there are many commonalities when we talk about issues, and the solutions are there, but it's only that they are in silos. So we have to connect as network. And I think GLAC and many other networks can really, really foster these learnings for us to change how we live today in cities.
That's great. And you and I are part of the Global Diplomacy Lab Mumbai Incubator Lab, which is working on inclusive cities and creating a framework of indicators. Why were you inspired? Because for those who don't know, the Global Diplomacy Lab is, again, by members, for members, and we pick the topics that are close to our heart. What made you join that particular initiative?
I think, first of all, congratulations to you for initiating that lab. I think that's a very pertinent topic. And I think most of the issues right now, as you have rightly mentioned earlier, that 70% of the world's population by 2050 will be living in urban areas. And now is the right time for us to discuss these things. And when you're talking about GDL, which is one of those labs which can co-create solutions. So I think this is the right time we are doing this, and I wanted to be part of it. And also the fact that I've just initiated my own think tank. So I wanted to kind of expand my networks and also learn, of course.
Thank you, Momi. Thank you so much. And one of our recent labs at the BMW Foundation, we spoke about the need for radical collaboration. So I invite every one of you here to partner with any one of our speakers or anyone else in the network, because none of those SDGs are going to be achieved in a hurry unless there is radical collaboration. So thank you, Momi. That was very inspiring. Our next speaker is Dunja Bonaci, and she's joining us from Croatia. She's an independent consultant in the field of eliminating violence against women and girls, a cause which is very close to my heart. Welcome, Dunja. Over to you. You're on mute, Dunja.
As usual, I apologize. Hello. Violence against women is one of the main causes of gender inequality in the world. I'm Dunja, and I work to eliminate violence against women. While attending Global Leadership Academy Lab, I realized that the work in this field is still much needed. There are so many forms of violence against women: domestic, sexual, cyber violence, Just to name few. Women's safety is threatened everywhere, in the public spaces, at home, and at work. Women live in fear, and it paralyzes us. We cannot achieve our full potential, and it makes us powerless. And if we are not empowered and strong, we cannot be equal. Numbers and estimates are huge. They show that 1 in 3 women will experience violence during her lifetime. Violence against women, like domestic violence, might take place in intimate spaces, but it is a public matter. And it is always a matter of unequal power relations. That's why staying silent is not an option, and we must speak loudly. Elimination of violence against women should be very high on our agendas. For me, it's a #1 priority. What about you?
Thank you, Dunya. I
Thank you,
do
Eva.
believe it is #1 priority and should be the #1 priority because, you know, it affects 33% of 50% of the population. And that in itself is millions and billions. So I wanted to ask you how frustrating it is for you that in the year 2020, we still have to host 16 days of activism, which recently, just 10 days ago, ended. And for those who don't know, 16 Days of Activism is a campaign to end violence against women that is hosted from the 25th of November to the 10th of December, which is International Human Rights Day. And there's a reason, like Dunya said, 1 in 3 women experience such violence. Is it frustrating, and how do you stay positive?
It is frustrating because numbers are so huge, and it seems like we are in this vicious circle that we can't move. But how I can stay positive, because if we look 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there were no SOS line. Domestic violence was private matter. And nowadays, the small steps are made, and well, not just small, but even a bigger one with all the conventions. What we need now, when we recognize that violence against women is such a huge issue, when we have these mechanisms, now these mechanisms have to be implemented. And that's what probably frustrates me the most, that countries are signing the conventions and they're ratifying them, but not much of the implementation of all these documents is done. So finally, violence against women is recognized, and we have mechanisms, and now something has to be done, some further steps that are not just made by the civil society and activists, but also by the countries and governments. So,
absolutely, and there are still countries that do not have laws to deal with this kind of abuse and harassment.
yes.
So thank you, Dunya, for your work. And I wanted to flip it around and say that what if things were fine, you know, and there was gender equality? Can you give us a glimpse into what the positives are?
Okay. Well, it's hard to imagine, but first of all, women will not be afraid. They will not be afraid to walk, to speak, they will be equal on all the levels they want to be equal, and there will be no stereotypes anymore. So I think this sounds a little bit utopic, but on the other hand, this is all the steps and things that we are trying to reach through the gender equality, but not just women, also all other minorities that are victims of, for example, gender-based violence.
Thank you, Dunya. And you raised a very important point that it's not only about women, but other genders too. Gender equality is actually good for everyone.
Yes.
And there is an economic benefit. So all the more reason that we should make it a point to have it. And here I'm going to invite every one of you to join the Gender Alliance, because if you're part of GLAC or the Responsible Leader Network or the GDL or the Bosch Alumni Network, some of us have formed a network amongst these networks that is trying to accelerate gender equality. So do look out for posts and information on the Gender Alliance, and I'll also put the website in the link in the chat section after I get off the screen. And our final speaker is Banu Pikol. She's joining us from Istanbul, Turkey, and she's a fellow at the Historical Dialogue and Accountability Program at the Institute for the Study of Human Rights at Columbia University. She's also part of several of our networks, GDL, Responsible Leaders, and she's part of the Mumbai lab as well. So welcome, Banu, and over to you.
Thank you, Elsa. A strong future demands that we talk with the past and engage with our history. I'm Banu, and I've dedicated a decade of my life to working with challenging cultural pasts. These are past events that cause painful, uncomfortable, and difficult emotions. And they usually also leave traces in the environment we see today. Traces like empty schools, abandoned monasteries, and even whole towns where there are only ghosts. How to preserve and how to present these places can be a very, very sensitive issue. But so many memories will vanish if we do not think of and if we ignore the past they reflect. This is why I also work with the communities and cultures and religions connected to these buildings and sites. Such peace building with the past takes a long time, even multiple generations. And fighting my way through nationalism and ignorance can be very tiring. It requires a lot of patience and determination. Sometimes I feel very frustrated, but the network I've built through the Global Diplomacy Lab sustains me in my work. And building partnerships like the Global Leadership Academy, the GLAC, is central to achieving my goals. I'm ready to make every effort to see more cultural conflicts transform into creative and constructive partnerships. Thank you.
That was amazing and really powerful. We underestimate the power of art and culture. So thank you for spotlighting that. And do tell us, how can communities like ours actually contribute towards peace building?
Communities like ours, or communities in general, can, I think, make or break such peace building efforts, because at the end of the day, it's people who work on site. I always thought I would be working with buildings when I started working in this field, but no, it's actually the people, whether they are the diaspora, whether they are people who were relocated into certain places. It's really with them that we work, and with them that we need to reconcile. And also we first need to reconcile with our own pasts, I think. And through networks such as the GLAC, such as the Global Diplomacy Lab, I'm always able to meet people who have much more experience than me. And so I'm always humbled, but also who really inspire me creatively, because we do have artists and we do have diplomats and we have NGO founders among us. So it's always a lot of support also comes from all these networks. And as I said, it's really frustrating sometimes, and I also get a lot of loving support.
And in the past, the Global Diplomacy Lab has worked on, museums and memory and atrocity on the other side. How do these labs help these institutions? How do the power of individuals, like the lab, for example, the lab format, and even in the GLAC community, we have people from diverse fields bringing in their perspectives. how do you see this helping institutions like, for example, the one in Argentina, ESMA?
Yes. As you said, we had one lab which focused on dealing with the past a couple of years ago. And one of the formats of the Global Diplomacy Lab is these labs that we do. And we have a challenge holder. For example, the challenge holder we had in Argentina was the ESMA. And so they came with us, they came to us with a challenge. And we as members were invited to work on their challenges on dealing with the past, involving as many communities and stakeholders as possible, and also adapting to the political climate that had been a bit positive, but then was starting to get difficult for them again. So they set out challenges for us, which we worked on for a couple of days, and we met a lot of people from the city, ranging from municipalities to artists. And then we had another lab in Berlin. And this is because Germany is a country which has reconciled with its past. And we were able to compare the solutions we had proposed for ESMA with the ones done already in Germany, in Berlin.
Thank you for that. So with that, we've ended the talks with the 4 speakers, and I'm going to invite you, the audience, to put forward questions for our speakers. And maybe in the meantime, I can pose one question, but you can do that either by putting it in the chat section or raising your hand, and Anna and I will moderate that session. But I'll kickstart the Q&A round. So Fabrice, maybe you want to say a few words and ask a question because you were involved in the process.
Yeah, well, of course, I want really to recognize the great quality that this team has done, and I'm totally amazed by, you know, the quality of presentations, moderation, and overall exchange that you know put forward. And for me, it's really this feeling of appreciation that is there, and with that, actually, only want to maybe give the floor first to others, and yeah, and we'll follow up, you know. And then congratulations again, Momi and Banu, who are the people that I know directly and who have been doing incredible work in Pakistan and Turkey, you know. And I recognize that, you know, GLAC is an opportunity. GLAC offers us an opportunity to also bring forward the works that we're doing, because as both speakers have mentioned, we're facing many challenges, going from environment, gender, and also cities and history. Sorry, what is that again? Historic, actually, building and so on. And many of these challenges, no one can solve them alone. Nobody can do them alone. And this opportunity today, it's really to remind us and to call for collaboration, be it in gender, be it in environment. And thanks again, GLAC and the team, for hosting this.
Thank you, Fabrice. I see Abida has raised her hand. So Abida, why don't you ask your question? You might have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. So I don't have a question actually, but I would just like to thank to Dunya for inviting me to participate at this event. To be honest, I haven't heard about GLAC before, but Dunya, I learned about it through Dunya. I run an NGO working on prevention of human trafficking and gender-based violence in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I really feel inspired after listening to the speakers at your event, because for you who might don't know, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a country who went through a horrible war in the which finished in the late 90s, but unfortunately we have never recovered from it. So now we are the second poorest country in Europe. And with an increase of gender-based violence, especially after the pandemic was declared. So in our daily work, we at our association really face a lot of challenges related to gender-based violence, and I really hope I will get empowered today by all of you, and hopefully learn some new approaches to preventing gender-based violence. So thank you again.
Thank you, Abida. Anybody else has a question for our speakers? So Colette has a question in the chat. She says, informative and engaging program, thank you. My question relates to a need from the pandemic to refocus on the sustainable development of rural areas. My work with colleagues, including architect Dr. Anna Griechting, is creating proposals to develop fragile rural areas. Do you think the movement from rural to urban spaces will be impacted by the pandemic? Maybe Momi, you want to go first, and then Dunya, or Shirley, you can add from a gender perspective or your community perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very pertinent question. Exactly, this is what the pandemic has actually made us realize. That how we have to actually pay attention to not only urban areas but also rural development, because the migration that has been happening and the urbanization that has been happening in past years, at least I can speak for Pakistan, was largely because rural areas were not developed. In the search for livelihood or for better life, people were moving from rural areas to urban areas, and Pakistan right now has the highest rate of urbanization in the entire region. So in the wake of I think a pandemic, we all are realizing that we have to review a lot of those notions and a lot of those theories that we had around sustainable development, and we have to kind of go back to basics, because I think most of the answers are in nature itself, and we don't have to create every time or I would say reinvent the wheel, because nature itself has given us a lot of solutions, be it food, be it livelihood, be it anything which relates to human life. So I really think that urban spaces are now no more the way they were attractive to people in rural areas, because I think in Pakistan, at least I can speak for that most of the corona cases were in urban areas and not in rural areas. So we also have to kind of review why was that so.
Thank you, Momi. Shirley, would you like to share?
I just looked at my phone. We've got a variant of the pandemic that has been now unrecovered or identified in South Africa, and this pandemic or the virus is spreading very, very fast, and it's affecting younger people as well. And so I think the density of our cities is a huge problem. And its social distancing is impossible. And this is why the spread is so enormous and uncontrolled. And I think that there needs to be ways in which we stimulate the economy in rural areas so that we decongest these metropolises. I think that's a big challenge. I don't know if I've actually addressed the question asked by Colette and her ginger cat. But I think, just relating the question to South Africa and the way in which the pandemic is imploding, and because of social distancing and the impossibility of it, particularly within poorer communities where the congestion is and housing is on top of each other. So we've got a real problem, and I think we have to think differently and plan differently. Thank you.
Colette, why don't you want to say
yes, thank you both for those excellent answers. I think that is the conclusion, Shirley, of the group I'm working with, and in particular, some of the ideas that we are co-creating relate to the ways in which fragile areas, and there are sadly many, many in our world today, may be developed with precisely the concerns that you've expressed and Momi has articulated in relation to Pakistan. I think that myself, I've relocated 2 years ago to a rural area, and I'm always impressed as I explore this area more and more, the ways in which solar farms are being developed, the ways in which opportunities for employment are being imagined. So I think that it's a huge challenge in this time of the pandemic to rethink perhaps the ways in which our ideas about movement from rural to urban are evolving, and that in fact we may be seeing much more of an emphasis now on the development, the sustainable development of rural areas throughout the world, because these areas of course could sustain, I think as you point out, could sustain many people if we simply reimagined the way they could be nurtured. And I think that's part of a focus on a planetary optic rather than simply thinking very narrowly in terms of state to state. We need to think perhaps more holistically in terms of our planet and the ways to help our planet not only survive, but the way to help it actually develop in a very, very constructive way. So thank you both.
Thanks, Colette. I'm wondering, Dunya, do you have anything to add, or Banu?
Well, I can add only not from the violence against women perspective, but from the perspective of food production, that really pandemic, at least in Croatia, showed how dependent we are on outside of the country food production. And suddenly, when pandemic starts, there were finally a lot of groups of the on Facebook that they were selling local products. So the small producers became heroes with their product, because suddenly all these tomatoes from Spain were not able to come to the market. So we were buying through the Facebook groups locally produced fruit and vegetables.
Yes, thank you. It just shows how interdependent we all are.
Yeah.
So we have 2 questions, I think. So Pierre Kanuma asks, so he says first, the presentations are well done and organized beautifully. So congratulations again. Thanks to the GLAC family and participants for making this happen. My question to all speakers from the perspective of their work or field of work is about how do you involve men as individuals in finding solutions to the many problems that affect women? And how has the pandemic affected men's participation in fighting against the different sorts of violence done to women? Do you have any particular examples from your communities? Thanks. Dunya, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately I don't have any examples from my community, but what men can do is stand up against violence and also stand up against toxic masculinity. So as Elsa mentioned, gender-based violence is not just violence against women. Violence against women is one small part of the gender-based violence, and gender-based violence affects all the genders. So basically, men and as individuals cannot reproduce the patterns that are so deeply rooted in our minds and in our society. So change them in order to diminish toxic masculinity, in order to diminish patriarchy, in order to give a space for women to be safe and equal. That's how they can help us in the fight, but also they can fight against child slavery, against child soldiers. So those negative violence that affects also boys and men. I just named few. And yeah, I think I have an example.
So I can give an example. In fact, in the Gender Alliance, we had a whole session dedicated to engaging men and boys. And the first step really is, how much do you know about the issue yourself? And then in your own family, how do you differentiate amongst the different family members? And third is your organization. In your little sphere of influence, do you have policies that are inclusive? And what are your stance on diversity, and can you create a safe and inclusive environment? I'm going to take Ezra's question and then ask Banu to respond, and then maybe Momi and Shirley can also add on to both these great questions. So Ezra says, thank you very much for the organization, and Banu for the invitation. As rights defenders working in many different fields, have you thought of combining your different fields? For example, combining women's studies and cultural heritage. I am very excited to hear if there is such a case study.
Thank you, Esther, and thank you for listening also. For me, the Global Diplomacy Lab has really engaged myself in the sense that I now work on another field rather than besides cultural heritage, which is peace building. And this is through the people I've met and the institutions I've met in the GDL. And I've been working on peace building for over a year and a half in relationship to cultural heritage and difficult pasts. And through this network, for example, I've received training on peace mediation and crisis diplomacy. And for example, I have collaborated with somebody who is an artist and also a human rights defender. And together we designed a course for international diplomats, which we delivered concerning artistic ways of dealing with the past and how the importance of NGOs in peace building and preserving cultural heritage. So one wonderful result of these networks is that we can have these creative collaborations and partnerships. In terms of women's studies and cultural heritage, or gender studies and cultural heritage, one example I can give is that in Turkey we designed a national camp for university students, regardless of their background, about cultural heritage preservation, and 95% of the students we had were women, were girls. And I think this is a big game changer, because you usually see boys or men at work in these sites, and for people to come and see all these girls working hard on the render on buildings or carving stone was really an interesting factor for us. And it was also made us think, is this the future of conservation, and what else can be done based on this urge coming from females to be involved in such initiatives.
Sorry, Momi, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I think I'll just be adding a bit on the first question. And I think that largely we have seen that we as women have diversified our roles. But I think one of the things where we are lagging when we talk about fighting for the rights of women or for that matter, human rights. I think men have not been able to diversify their role. And what pandemic has really done is for them to step into unconventional roles, which earlier they were not doing. For example, staying home and, the workspace they were sharing within the same, place where mostly women are diversifying. They're also going to office, coming back home, doing house tours. I'm talking from a very conventional point of view, where in Pakistan, for example, maybe a lot of educated men would just come home and rest because they have come back home and they are really tired. So I think this has really helped diversify their roles, and they have really tried to look beyond what they used to look at. And I think that way, staying home and doing your work and still, looking at your partner doing both things. So that way, I think men have been kind of able to diversify, but I don't have any examples. So yeah, this is a little thing that I just wanted to add.
Okay, and I remember one of the example how men can be involved in fighting violence against women. So early education, there are programs in Croatia where high school kids are involved, and now they are trying to even lower, to start in the kindergartens with the education of both boys and girls against violence against women. So that way, by education that starts from the early age, they can be involved in this fight.
Shirley, would you like to add to any of this?
I think maybe just to say that we have got quite an active forum of men in the name #NotInMyName. And, 16 days of activism at a time when we've got a new hybrid and it's, second wave, I think definitely has affected mobilization. Although, the question I have in my head every year when we hit the 16 days is why 16 days? Why not 365 days? And the other thing is that there has been an escalation in the statistics on domestic violence during this year. Men and women being cooped up together, and the frustration levels, and so we've had an increase, unfortunately, in levels of violence against women in this period of 2020 under lockdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I don't know how, that's a very simple answer. I don't have any solutions at this point.
I know in India, one of the organizations, Breakthrough, has a campaign called Ring the Bell and Interrupt the Violence. So you can, if you hear domestic violence from your neighbor's house, you don't know how to intervene, just go ring the bell and maybe make a stupid excuse like, do you have the newspaper? Can I borrow some sugar? It just gives that pause and brings the negativity down, but also alerts them that maybe neighbors are listening. Hollaback has the 5 Ds, direct, document, divert, and so on and so forth. So there are lots of things that one can do. The starting point is educate yourself. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Well, my last question to every one of you, since you've been through the first process of Voices from GLAC, can you share a little bit about your experience and motivate others in the network to apply in the second round? So this is a call to all of you, like watch out for the next round of Voices from GLAC. And I hope, these 4 stories have inspired you to want to go through the same process. So maybe, Shirley, you want to talk about it?
Certainly, thank you. I welcome the question. initially, it caught my attention because we are involved in podcast training, something new, something that we've started in 2020, and it worked very, very well and we'll continue with. But we did a session on voice. So when I saw voice, I grabbed onto it. I seized the opportunity. And I wondered how this course was going to unfold, and was very intriguing because first we had to come up with 5 sentences about ourselves, punchy sentences, short sentences, no more than 13 words, because you can't breathe in a sentence longer than 13 words. Then it went from 5 to 7 to 12 and 14. What you heard today was 14 sentences of roughly 13 words per sentence. So the process was really fascinating and one that I learned from. So thank you very much. And besides, working with such a wonderful group of women that I hope will stay connected in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Shirley. What about you, Mo?
Yeah, as I'll just add to what Shirley said, it was first of all very inspiring to be here because I heard amazing stories. I know right now we are only 4 here, but in the beginning we have also heard stories from 3 other members who were part of this group, and unfortunately because of their domestic issues they couldn't join. I think that was really inspiring for me because that helps me reflect a lot on what I'm doing and how am I doing it. And then storytelling is one of the most effective mediums of communication. And usually we give presentations, which are at times very boring. But I think that Mel really trained us to really see through as to when we talk, how to inspire others. And I learned a lot of things. I learned what kind of as Shirley said, how long should a sentence be, or where to give pause, and how to make it more effective when you're speaking rather than just taking that 15 minutes of your slot. So I think I was really inspired and I really learned a lot. So I would really encourage everybody to please take part in the next round. You will learn a lot. Thank you.
Dunya?
Okay, so in February this year, before the lockdown, I went to the storytelling workshop, and I was amazed what storytelling can do. And working in the field of violence against women, I know how stories are powerful and they grab your attention and they tell us about these horrible things that are happening to women, but it also can inspire. The stories of survivor can inspire people. So basically that was my first idea when I decided to accept this call. And also I wanted to work with Mel. I said that in my introduction again, because Mel and I were together, and Mel was our coach at one Global Leadership Academy lab of human trafficking. So storytelling is one thing. This was coming out of my comfort zone, because during the COVID lockdown, I was presenting some things via Zoom and I was not so happy with it. So I wanted to improve my speaking, my presentation, and come out of the comfort zone of speaking in front of the audience, even if it's virtually. But also it was a helping Black community. I want to give something back because they gave me so much inspiration, and they inspired me so much, not just people who were with me on Global Leadership Lab, Anti-Trafficking Lab, but also other people that I met through the network. And what I learned to breathe. And that was the most important during this process for me, not just shaping the story and presenting it, but also breathing. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Dunya.
Thank you.
What about you, Banu?
I suppose everybody said what I wanted to say. But for me, it was also giving back something to the community, which has really enriched me so much over the last 4 or 5 years. And just maybe to say something final, it looks like we're an all women's group, I know, just for any external viewers or listeners. We are not an all women group. We have a lot of men also among us, but it just happens that we ended up just being women. We had one man, but he kind of left the group because of some issues he had and couldn't join us till the end.
Well, thank you once again, everyone. Your 4 stories were extremely inspiring. Anna, can we have a round of applause?
One moment. Yes, and please feel free.
Okay, so we wanted to have this. You know, it is a bit strange to host events like these online when in person you would get a thunderous round of applause, maybe a standing ovation, but online it's hard to do both. So once again, thank you on behalf of the GLAC community for sharing your stories. And we really wanted to do this at the end of the year to end this year, which has been difficult for many with its own challenges, on a high. So you've helped do that. But we do have a surprise. And with that, I'm going to turn.
Much, Elsa, if I have to unmute myself, but I just managed to do so. Thanks a lot for all of you. I just wrote that in the chat because I didn't know if I have the honor to also speak in this around this morning. So thanks for all of you for the 4 presentations. I'm sorry that I was a little late in the beginning, but I started right when Shirley started speaking. So I got all 4 presentations in full length and intensity and inspirational power. Yeah, indeed, it has been a very challenging year on top of all the challenging tasks and topics we are all working with. And I must say the past hour has just refilled me with a lot of energy. Some of you might have seen that in the background of my video, a little bit amateur-like. I'm just also in the middle of moving with a family to another city. So that in my family came, or personal situation came on top of all that. Us and a family of 5, and then obviously the COVID situation, which is very comfy, I must say, in Germany, but still as challenging as in all other countries that are hit. So, so this now leaves me with a lot of energy that you gave and shared for the coming festive season. Thanks a lot. And I just wrote that in the chat that I hope we will face a sunnier, as Anne just shared with us, and healthier, and in such, and also safer, because I'm also fearing sort of economic and political crises which will come with COVID, where they are not yet, have not yet arrived. 2021, and I'm looking forward to the path together. We have walked along already and will continue even stronger to walk. And as most of you know, the Global Leadership Academy will continue for another year. So we will be able, as a team of Anna, Mareike, and me, to share that path with you and to further shape it, and to hope to create a sustainable path that will reach beyond any sort of programs or sort of catered for activities by foundations, institutions, etc., but basically be created by the community members to be a strong global, or as Colette said, planetary network to shape the society and the world we all want to live in. And I'm very proud and honored to be part of this group today and this network we all dream of. Yeah, that's the most wonderful vision, I think, at the end of one year like this you can have. So thanks again. And I suppose I will reach out to one or the other, because obviously I jotted down stuff. I had a lot of ideas again during all your presentations. So let's go on. Thanks. And have a wonderful end of this year.
Thank you, Vipke. And, you know, without your leadership, this would not be possible. So we are very grateful, and we are really, really, truly blessed, you know, because we are part of this amazing community, but we also have these opportunities where we can co-create, experiment in a safe space. And this Voices from GLAC wouldn't have been possible without your 100% backing. So thank you once again for it.
A pleasure. And it won't be the last, I suppose.
No, it won't be. And I'm hoping that many of our members will opt in for the next round. And, I don't know if you know, but I'm also the TEDx curator for Warsaw, which is my suburb. I'm already offering these 4 to share their stories, and put it up on TED.com. And hopefully I can feature more of these amazing peers of mine. So
wonderful, Elsa, wonderful. And who said that again, Momi? There's a strong woman behind every strong man. It was a Pakistani politician. So I think there is a very strong community behind every strong leader. So it's, I think we could all swap roles, this is like
yeah.
geese fly, sort of. One is at the top for a time being, but will change position. So that's how I feel in this network. Everybody could take the lead, and that's a fantastic feeling.
And it's also a community where you can bring in people from with diverse perspectives and fields and co-create something that is amazing, beautiful, and much more than you could have done yourself singly.
Exactly.
Great. So with that, we have Anna, who's going to close us out with one final song. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, I noticed that you didn't hear the music before. And it was an unintended a cappella version, but okay. And before, and you can, slowly fade out if you like. And these videos of the speakers, along with some other materials, will be up on our website in January. And also please join our next input session where we have a speaker from UNDP Latin America and Caribbean, Jairo, who will speak about how COVID-19 is a chance for more resilient societies in Latin America. I have put also a registration link in the chat. All right, so now finally, happy holidays to you and stay safe. Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. And can't you hear a pitter-pat? And the helping tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade. But I'm not afraid. This river crossed over, and if I never get a cent, I'd still be rich as Rockefeller. With gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Diddle diddle da, da do da da. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. And can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that hopping tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with those blues on parade, but I'm not afraid. This road crossed over, and if it ever said I'd still be rich as Rockefeller, with gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Bye bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, Anne. But I'm going to hang around for another 10-15 minutes in case people want to chat. Feel free.
Very good. I was very happy to see many of you. Very nice. Jose.
Elsa,
Yes, Colette.
no, this was a great program, really. I mean, it was inspiring to hear the stories, and I think it's a real community builder. So it's a great initiative.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thanks
definitely,
much.
yeah. Thank you very much. It was very nice. And also discovering your nice voice, beautiful, is the best way to finish this year. Very, very unusual, very unprecedented times. It's not the first time we men are a majority in this kind of, unfortunately, events, but men can participate like me, and we're happy that we know we are together, trying to do something to do this world better. And I do believe what you said, everybody says that this planetarian network is very important, and we can make a lot of things if we work together. So men and women, doesn't matter, we are here working together, and a happy new year, a better one than this one. So thank you for your inspiring presentations.